it finally happened. Ukrainians discovered a key to Russian defenses, and now they'll be very easy for them to breach them. At the same time, as a result of recent Ukrainian counteroffensive activities, as many as 790 Russian soldiers have been eliminated, and ultimately one of Putin's favorite generals has been also found suspiciously not moving recently. But more about all this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. So, back to our favorite battle, Babushkas. And recently, they were addressing the president of Turkey, Recep Erdogan. And what they basically said is that he should behave properly or he will be punished. He should behave like our favorite president, Vladimir Putin. The main reason for their concern with the foreign policies between Russia and Turkey is that Recep Erdogan started to back down on his words about not letting Sweden join NATO. I mean, yes, battle Babushkas becoming more and more expert in foreign politics. And the main idea of their address to the president of Turkey is that these battle Babushkas are ready to give him a second chance to once again behave more proper, because just in case if he does not fulfill his promises, there can always be somebody else as the president of Turkey, but there will always be one and only president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And so right now I got a very interesting question for you. Do you feel mad about these Babushkas? And I mean, even if they truly believe what they say and not just being forced by soldiers to read from the script, to be honest, I don't know about you, but it is just almost impossible to hate on them. So just, please let us know in the comments how do you feel about these battle Babushkas. And then also, for experiment purposes, if you also do not hate on these battle Babushkas, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel, just to see statistically how majority of us treat these people. You can also follow me on Instagram and just see how I live outside of YouTube. The link is down below. Right, and now let's go straight to the main topic of the video, Ukrainians being able to find the key to Russian defenses. Then we'll talk about 780 Russian soldiers being eliminated in one single counteroffensive by Ukrainians. Putin's favorite general found suspiciously dead, and then the progress of Ukrainians in the east, and we will finalize everything with the Western military support to Ukraine and the most recent NATO summit. And so, speaking about Ukrainians being able to easily breach the defenses of Russians in the very near future, it all comes down to these cluster munitions, which have been recently approved by the United States. This munition has the range of approximately 30 kilometers, it has 72 grenades in each shell, and basically if you fire them even behind the front lines, Ukrainians will be able to cover 100% of the first lines of defenses of Russians and 78%, pretty much the majority of the second line of defenses. This is just yet another confirmation that even though some people think that this is a pretty controversial weapon, in fact this will be a life-changing assistance to Ukraine, because one of the biggest struggles they're experiencing right now is exactly how to breach the defenses of Russians, which they have been fortifying for several months straight and being uninterrupted. And so, just after making several shots, Ukrainians will be able to clear the majority of defense structures and Russian trenches, while the rest of the Russian soldiers, seeing how destructive this weapon is, most likely they will be in extreme panic and the morale will be below ground. And then it will be the time for Ukrainians to continue their offensive already by foot, and they do have a military tactics trained by their Western allies, which at this very moment is superior to Russian tactics. And in the meantime, what are Russian soldiers doing? Well, unfortunately, they do what they do the best, and there has been recently yet another massive loud noises which were heard in Kherson. Next we have the report by the Institute for the Study of War, which claims that the main concentration of Ukrainian counteroffensive is right now happening in Zaporozhye region, specifically to the south of Orikhiv. Next, I saw some of you guys' comments were asking about what's the situation on Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And so, according to these satellite images, as a result of Kakhovka Dam incident, the water levels in Zaporozhye water reservoir is starting to be more or less stable. At this very moment they're approximately at 16 meters and the water is no longer decreasing. So long story short, as of right now, the situation on the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is stable. Our next stop brings us back to Zaporozhye front lines, where Ukrainians were able to destroy a large assault group of Russians to the north of Chkalova. As we move closer to the most intense front lines in Zaporozhye region, there has been some reportedly loud noises in the city Tokmak. And then, going all the way to the shoreline of Azov Sea, even more loud noises have been reported in Berdyansk, and these allegedly were Ukrainians destroying a local hotel which has been used by Russian soldiers and their commanders as the temporarily military base. And as a result of this attack, a Russian commander in the south, Lieutenant General Oleg Tsokov, has been reportedly eliminated. But wait, it is not that Putin's favorite general who we'll be talking about very soon. And just overall, according to the Ukrainian commander of the southern forces, Alexander Tarnavsky, Ukrainians continue to slowly but surely advance in Zaporozhye front line, being able to eliminate 17th concentration of Russian forces and 9 of their ammunition warehouse in just 24 hours alone. In addition to that, right here we have a picture of a military heavy flamethrower called Solntsepiok, which belongs to Russian army, which has been recently seized by Ukrainians, and now they're using this combat machine against Russians themselves. And this is only one of these units in the entire Ukrainian army, and the consequences of these attacks are truly devastating. And this heavy flamethrower was definitely one of the biggest contributors towards Ukrainian success, even though technically this is a Russian piece of an equipment. Yeah, and by the way, once again, for the consequences of the attacks by this Solntsepiok, please go to my Patreon. There's still 1 week of free access and the link is down below. And ultimately, recently we received the most updated statistics from the General Staff of Ukraine, which claims that in the beginning of July, as a result of just one counteroffensive in 24 hours, they were able to eliminate 780 Russian soldiers and approximately 100 pieces of their military equipment. So pretty much as you can see, even though Ukrainians they do advance, maybe slower than a lot of people anticipate, but they still inflict heavy damages on the Russian army. It is just happening from the distance. And in addition to all that, a lot of Putin's personally favorite generals and officers are getting eliminated, more and more of them pretty much every single day. So let's talk about this right now, before moving to the east of Ukraine. And the guy I'm talking about is Stanislav Rzhitsky. He used to be the commander of a Russian submarine, and he has been personally responsible for launching several Kalibr missiles against Ukraine for many times in the past. He has been reportedly eliminated during his morning run in Krasnodar. Most likely this is the work of Ukrainian spies. And to be honest, despite all the bribes and the possibility to become a Russian millionaire or maybe even a billionaire, this does not look very appealing to be the military commander of the Russian army at this very moment. You either find an open window and have an accident, or you drink the Russian tea and suspiciously get poisoned, or you just simply get eliminated by Ukrainian special forces. Pretty much it's not safe anywhere. And at this point I'm not surprised I don't see too many retired Russian officers, because the only way to retire for them is through this way. But okay, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east of Ukraine, then just a couple of words about the Western military support to Ukraine and the most recent NATO summit. And while I'm going to the east of the country, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you like this style of daily updating. Alright, so our first stop brings us to the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, where recently some very loud noises have been reported by the locals. And even though Russians continue to launch missiles and drones against Ukraine every single day, the number of these successful attacks decreased significantly, mainly thanks to the advanced air defense system of Ukrainians. And for example, in the last day alone, they were able to intercept 26 out of 28 Russian Shahed drones and even one helicopter. Next we quickly go to the territory of Russia, specifically to the region Bryansk, where approximately 170 kilometers away from the borders between Russia and Ukraine, this missile has suspiciously fell on this territory of this region. Russians immediately blamed Ukrainians for this attack, but if you watch the video in the slow motion, you can see that in fact this is a Russian missile which was launched from S-200 missile launch system. And now let's go to the actual east of Ukraine, where according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, the main combat activities, or at least one of the main ones, were continued to be along Kupiansk-Svatove-Kreminna front line, with neither of the sides achieving any success. As we go a little bit more to the south, Ukrainians were able to destroy a Russian assault group in Klishchiivka, and they were also able to eliminate a Russian T-80 tank using Javelin missiles. In addition to that, another multiple launch rocket system of Russians called Zapark has been destroyed somewhere on the eastern front lines in Donetsk region. And of course, Ukrainians continue to maintain immense pressure against Russian positions on Bakhmut flanks, as you can see from this video. And just like any other footage I was showing today, the full version of this assault is on my Patreon, the link is down below. And just overall, in the last 24 hours, Ukrainians were able to destroy 1 control point of Russians, 3 concentration of their forces, and 7 artillery units in the eastern front lines alone. And here is just mind-blowing statistics. Get ready for this. Ukrainians in 5 weeks of their counteroffensive, which according to some people once again is slow, but still they were able to recapture almost exactly the same amount of land as Russians captured in 6 months of their own offensive. And for the reference, Russians captured 282 square kilometers since the beginning of this year, while Ukrainians were able to liberate 253 square kilometers. It is just 5 weeks versus 6 months. But the situation is much more bright if you follow Russian propaganda. I should add, ridiculous Russian propaganda. According to the Minister of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, since the beginning of once again this Ukrainian counteroffensive, Russians were able to destroy 21 Ukrainian fighter jets, 5 helicopters, approximately just 26,000 Ukrainian soldiers. And here is the funniest part. I sincerely hope this was just a mistake in the statistics, but they reported destroying it is just unbelievable. 1,244 Ukrainian tanks. I don't even think Ukraine has this many tanks in total. Maybe they do. But Russians reported destroying 4 digits amount of tanks. I don't believe it. What about you? So pretty much yes. Now just a couple of words about the Western military support to Ukraine and this most recent NATO summit, and then just a quick conclusion of the video. And first of all, France is planning to send its own long-range missiles called Scalp-EG, which are basically Storm Shadow missiles, to Ukraine, and the range is approximately 300 kilometers. Next we have the country of Germany, which is pledging yet another 600 to 700 million euros military support package, which will include 2 Patriot air defense systems, several dozen Leopard tanks, and Marder armored personnel carriers. And this support package brings Germany to the 2nd place in terms of the total monetary support to Ukraine, right behind the United States of America. Next we have the country of South Korea, which is pledging humanitarian support to Ukraine. And I don't remember personally, but I think it is one of the very first times South Korea is helping Ukraine. And the main event of the recent days is that right now a NATO summit is happening in the capital of Lithuania, Vilnius. A lot of things are obviously being discussed during this summit, but talking about Russian-Ukrainian war, according to the Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, the alliance is ready to reduce the requirements for Ukraine to join the alliance. It will be reduced by just one essential step they have to follow, but Ukraine will still have to fulfill other requirements, and among the most important ones is to reduce the level of corruption inside the country. And then another statement is that unfortunately, while the war is still going, Ukraine will not be able to join NATO. But then, once again, Jens Stoltenberg mentioned that the main discussion about Ukraine joining the alliance is still yet to take place. And so pretty much yes, as you can see, Ukrainians continue to find and exploit the weak spots of Russians. They're about to receive this life-changing cluster munition, which will help them to obliterate almost the first two lines of defense of Russians and then launch their actual counteroffensive by foot. And most likely this is when we're gonna start seeing them recapturing big territories at once and doing this relatively fast. At the same time, Russians do suffer big losses. A lot of Russian military commanders and officers are being suspiciously eliminated, and just overall the morale of Russian soldiers and the stability within Putin's inner circle is very questionable. So pretty much, yeah, the chances of Ukraine winning in this war are getting more and more almost every single day. We just need to wait for one table-turning point, which can be, to be honest, anything. If you don't want to miss it as soon as it happens, can you please like this video and subscribe to my channel? Only takes one click. The absolutely best way to support my work is through my Patreon. You can also become my channel member or simply use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи. Beware there are scammers in the comments. Please follow me on Instagram and see you tomorrow.